Court Gentry, The Gray Man is back in The Hard Line, the 15th novel in the Gray Man series by Mark Greaney. Hi, I'm Dan Scunner, and this is Some Books Considered. Mark Greaney has a degree in international relations and political science. In his research for his best-selling Gray Man novels, he's traveled to more than 30 countries and received first-hand experience in firearms training, scuba diving, stunt driving, Navy fighter plane flying, field medical training, and much more. And he joins us to talk about The Hard Line. Mark, welcome to Some Books Considered.
Thanks for having me again.
Well, this is the 15th installment in the ongoing story of Gray Man, so where are you taking readers this time?
Well, after book 15, I've had a lot of different roles for my character. He started out as an assassin, former CIA officer who's being hunted down by the CIA, and now we're 15 books in, and he is working for a kind of secretive clandestine unit that's called Ghost Town that reports to the deputy director of the agency. And there's a kind of an infiltration of the U.S. government, so the CIA director doesn't really have anyone he can trust other than this small unit. And when 5 assassins come in from out of the country and start taking out intelligence professionals in the D.C. area, Court Gentry, the Gray Man, and his team at Ghost Town are sort of tasked with finding and finishing the bad guys.
So in this book, like I said, you're 15 books into the series. Is it okay for people to kind of jump in with this book, or is it important that they have, basically started from the beginning of this series so they understand the Gray Man better?
Yeah, I've always really worked hard to where each book is a standalone novel, so you don't have to have read any of the other stories. If you had, there is a longer story arc that goes through 15 books, because you want to sort of reward the people that read them all and find something to enjoy in that. But if you hadn't read any of the other books and you picked this up, you would immediately understand who the players are and who the antagonists are, and you'd have a good sort of action adventure novel.
As you mentioned, the Gray Man, Court Gentry, has evolved over those 15 books. Part of that, I'm sure, is because you need to develop that character to keep yourself interested as an author. But do you think also that development is happening because you have developed as an author?
Oh, unquestionably. The first Gray Man novel, I'm very proud of it, but it's more like a Die Hard, which, is a movie that I really enjoy. It takes place in a very short amount of time. There's a limited space for character development. So it's basically about this assassin who is being hunted, who has a job to accomplish. And that is the scope of the story. And a few years into my career writing Gray Man novels, I started working with Tom Clancy, writing Jack Ryan novels. My own books got more geopolitical. They expanded in scope. And now, honestly, in The Hard Line, it has all the action of any of my other books, but I honestly think that it has a lot more layers of depth and nuance in it. There's a lot involving family. There's a lot involving sort of the history of the characters and the potential future of the characters. So I've definitely developed as an author, but you're exactly right. It's also to keep me interested in the story. I want the character to not, follow the same journey each book.
And I'm assuming that's part of what keeps the readers interested as well, because Court Gentry is not one-dimensional. If you've been reading the books, you see how he has changed over time. It becomes a more intriguing character.
Yeah, I always want to write books that I want to read, and hopefully, I never know what people are going to respond to, but I've always made the Gray Man, Court Gentry, a character with a lot of strengths, but also with some vulnerabilities, and that's just been fun to write about. But I think that's one thing that readers respond to is like, you don't know how he's going to get out of the scrapes that he gets himself into, and he doesn't always come out unscathed, either physically or emotionally.
Well, as you mentioned, family is one of the themes in this book for both the hero and the villain of the book. And so tell us a little bit more about how you explore family in this novel.
Yeah, the main antagonist in this book is a Northern Irish assassin named Campbell Coyle, whose code name is Whetstone. And I think of all the characters, all the villains I've put in any of my 27 novels, 15 Gray Man books, but there's been quite a few other novels that I've written. I think he is the one villain that readers will most sort of maybe identify with, not root for, but understand the story of. And basically, without giving too much away, because it's all given away at the beginning of the book, Court has killed this man's son for reasons that made sense to Court at the time. And Whetstone learns about this, and then he gets himself assigned to a job that brings him to the United States, which is this big international conspiracy that's going on. And his sole reason is to target the Gray Man. So these two kind of apex predators fighting against each other in the midst of this larger story, it really kind of drives this novel.
Well, one of the things that readers will look forward to who have read the series for some time is that you give a little extra time in this novel to Zack Hightower. Tell us about him.
Yeah, so Zack, I put Zack in the second Gray Man book all those years ago, a little bit for comic relief. He's a frenemy of Court. At some points, they're antagonists, and usually they're on the same size. But a lot of times Zack has been there for laughs, and he has a very different disposition than Court, even though they may be on the same mission. And in this book, you really get into his personal life. I had said in an earlier book that he had given a young daughter up into the witness protection system because he wanted to keep her safe, and her story comes into this book in quite a big way. And it was interesting to write about Zack with some different nuance and a different angle.
Well, you're known for doing extensive research for your novels. And I'm wondering what research challenges this novel posed for you.
At the backdrop of this story, the Troubles in Northern Ireland, play a part. So I studied that all when it was going on in college, and even after college, I read everything that I could about terrorism in general and what was going on in Northern Ireland specifically. But it had been a long time since I'd done any of that research, and I really wanted this book to be rooted in the past in some ways. So I went to Northern Ireland. I spent a good amount of time in Belfast, and then I went down to South Armagh and rented a farmhouse there and kind of lived in the same area where my character lives in the book. And South Armagh, back during the Troubles, was called bandit country by the British. They had to travel with armored vehicles or in Lynx helicopters to safely move around that area. It was so dangerous. And it was interesting to me. It was just a very beautiful, peaceful place. But at the same time, there was a lot of graffiti, pro-IRA graffiti. And, there was definitely still some Republican dissent for sure.
Oh, Mark, as you may remember, I'm sure maybe I've asked you in the past because we've talked for several times, but there is a question I like to ask authors of fiction, and it's this. If you could spend a day in real life with one of the characters from your novel, who would it be and why?
The answer is probably Zack Hightower, for the simple reason that I think he'd be a lot of fun to be around. I've always sort of written the Gray Man as almost the straight man in the series, and the other characters, sometimes even the villains, play off of him as a straight man. And Zack, who's not a villain, is just a real character and a lot of fun to be around. I have a lot of friends now who are Navy SEALs or former Navy SEALs, and they can be an entertaining bunch. So, I mean, just for my own personal enjoyment, I'd probably hang around Zack before I'd even hang around Court.
Well, as we mentioned, this is the 15th book, and you did mention that very first book, which was picked up by Netflix, made into basically a movie. How was that experience for you, seeing your book translated into this different medium?
It was definitely surreal, enjoyable in a lot of ways. I wasn't involved with the film other than I'd spent a couple of days with the directors when they first got the movie years before it came out. But I, just sort of followed along like anybody else did on the whole production of it. It was during COVID, so I wasn't on set or anything like that. I was there at the premiere and enjoyed that. The film is probably 50% things out of the book and 50% the directors and the writers' own creation. And that's fine. I expected that going into it. I didn't really have rose-colored glasses that the book that I wrote was going to be exactly what was on the screen. I think that my books are a little grittier, or a lot grittier, and there were some plot points that they weren't able to cover in 2 hours because I had 100,000 words to do it. So it was a good experience overall. Hopefully it happens again someday. But, all I can do is keep my nose down and write the best books I can, and let Hollywood take care of their end of things.
Well, you mentioned this earlier, but you did have the opportunity to work with Tom Clancy and to co-author with him. I'm curious about that experience and how that impacted you as a writer and your career.
Well, step one of that experience was just terror for me. And it's something I never thought would happen. And when it was offered to me, I really almost tried to get out of it because it just seemed like at that point I'd only had 2 little paperback books out, and I was a massive Tom Clancy, Jack Ryan fan. So it wasn't that I didn't think I knew the characters or that aspect of it. It was just writing on that scale and having that number of eyeballs looking at my work. But pretty quickly, I got very comfortable with it. And honestly, after Tom passed and the family asked me to continue the series, I was still doing Gray Man novels, and my Gray Man novels got bigger and broader and more geopolitical, and that was fun for me. I enjoyed writing in that space. My background is studying political science and international relations, and I wanted my Gray Man series to reflect a little bit more realistically what was going on in the world, and I was very lucky to work with Clancy because it gave me that opportunity.
So what's next for you?
Well, right now I'm writing the 16th Gray Man book. I just got back from the Austrian Alps doing research there. I'm going to do some research in the Cayman Islands in March. And then I have more research to do up in Virginia, DC, and Boston. So I'll do all that this spring, try and turn that book in the summer. And then I'm going to start on another book, which is a standalone, not a Gray Man novel, not an espionage thriller. It's a thriller, but more of a crime suspense type of a story. So I'll write that the rest of this year and into next year. So I'm staying busy for sure.
The book is The Hard Line, a Gray Man novel by Mark Greaney. Mark, thank you for talking with me today.
Good to see you again, Dan.
If you'd like to purchase The Hard Line, I've placed a link for you in the description below. If you enjoyed this conversation, please subscribe, like, and click on the bell so you know when I post new interviews. Meanwhile, here are 2 more books you might find interesting. I'm Dan Scunner. Thank you for watching this edition of Some Books Considered.